Yesterday against the Cardinals, the Lions walked away with the victory, but they also walked away with a litany of injuries, most of them minor. But one such injury now has the potential for being a season-ending one, and we're going to talk about it, folks, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Lions friends, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. My friends, I'm going to just start off by saying this. When it comes to injuries, and it doesn't matter what the sport is, they're always a bad thing. They should never be celebrated. They should never be, a thing that we should enjoy. And I'm not saying that because anybody has particularly said or done that. I'm just simply saying that that's the nature of injuries. They are bad. They are not something that should be celebrated. And that's something I just want to put out first and foremost. Because I know people that sometimes will do that. But when we're talking about it in the case for our Lions, obviously yesterday against the Cardinals we got the victory. We got the dub. The problem is that while we got the victory, we also got a lot of different injuries. And most of those injuries are on the defensive side of the ball. Because yesterday, Aleem McNeil left the game with a shoulder injury. We currently don't know what the severity of that injury is. Derek Barnes left the game with a knee injury. Don't know the severity of that injury. We also know that Brian Branch left the game with a concussion. And then on top of that, Terrion Arnold had a knee injury but was able to play through it. And then, to round it all off, Sam Laporta was able to finish the game, but he's dealing with a low ankle sprain. So when we take a look at all of those injuries, for the most part, what we're dealing with is either injuries that, for the most part, should not keep our players on the sideline for too long, because we already know what we're potentially dealing with, or we don't know anything really at all, because no information has been released thus far. However, though, there is one injury that I believe it was Ian Rappaport, but it could also have been Adam Schefter that reported this. There is a player that has an injury that is now deemed to be more serious, more severe than what was initially thought. And the player in question is edge rusher Marcus Davenport. Apparently yesterday in the game against the Cardinals, he sustained an elbow injury of some type, and he tried to play through it. He tried to put a sleeve on it, get back into the game, but he couldn't do it. Now the report is today that the injury, as I said, is seeming to be more severe, more serious, and that it has the potential for having a long-lasting impact on keeping Marcus Davenport out. Okay, let's understand what's going on here. This is bad on multiple levels, and it's bad for a number of different reasons. First and foremost, it's bad because now the Lions are in a situation where we really don't have anybody opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. Now, don't get me wrong. I already know that there are going to be people that are going to say, well, David, we still have James Houston, and we still have Ukwu. Here's what I'm going to say about this. Both of those guys are great pass-rushing edge rushers. They are able to get after the quarterback. They can do that very well. But the problem is we don't need just a pass-rushing specialist edge rusher. We need a well-rounded edge rusher. That was part of the reason why Marcus Davenport got the start, other than the fact that he has more experience, but he's more well-rounded. He has the ability to play both run defense and pass rush in equal measure. When it comes to James Houston and it comes to Ukwu, they are primarily more about pass rushing. That's a bit of a problem because we already know, us Lions fans, that we're going to have to deal with teams that particularly are either, one, going to want to try and run the ball outside, or two, we're going to have to deal with teams that have scrambling quarterbacks. Part of the reason I think why the Lions did so well yesterday against Kyler Murray is because we were able to keep containment on him. That does play a factor into all this. So that's reason number one why this is really bad, because now we have just lost a veteran experienced player opposite of Hutchinson, and we really don't have anybody on, the depth chart that realistically has the same talent level, per se, that what Davenport had in an overall capacity. So that's problem number one. Problem number two. Considering the fact that the depth is not really all that good, there's really not a whole lot of options that are out there currently at this point. Now, there are a couple of names in free agency that the Lions could go after. But let's be fair and honest here. There's a reason why they're still in free agency. They're either old or they have some other kind of problem that teams don't want to deal with. So you're kind of going with Russian roulette when you go that route. Now, Brad Holmes might decide to go with a trade option. Highly unlikely, but he could potentially go that route. Or he could potentially try to scour something on a practice squad. I don't know. But I know this for a fact. As much as I know somebody's going to suggest it, I'm going to cut it off at the pass right now. Brad Holmes is not trading for Max Crosby. It ain't going to happen. I know right now that, Antonio Pierce said about players with the Raiders that weren't showing enough effort that they could potentially be traded. But one thing I can tell you about this is Max Crosby's never a person they have to worry about effort for, and the Raiders would be stupid to trade him after just signing him to a new extension. So it ain't going to happen. Would be a lovely idea, especially bringing him back here to Michigan, but it ain't going to happen. So getting back to my original point here for this problem, the Lions don't have a whole lot of options to try and, bring someone in to fill this now massive void opposite of the defense. And the reason why it's a massive void is because Aiden Hutchinson cannot do all this crap by himself. Now, don't get me wrong. Hutchinson has had a blazing fast start to the year. I mean, for crying out loud, he's only played 3 games and he's got 6.5 sacks. Like, dude, man's been absolutely outstanding. But he can't just do it all by himself. And part of what helps him is having a competent edge rusher on the other side of the field, both in pass rushing and also in stopping the run. And right now, we're now looking at a potential situation where that's not going to be the case for either the rest of the season or for a significant period of time. And the Lions really don't have anybody that's out and available that they can just bring in. So it's a bit of a problem. And then we get to the third reason that this is a problem. And I know this is a problem for Lions fans particularly because it's not necessarily a problem for the team, but it's a problem for Lions fans. I know for a fact that there are Lions fans that this entire offseason, I can literally go back and rewatch it, relive it in my head. There were so many Lions fans that were absolutely adamant. They were just vehement about the fact that Brad Holmes needed to sign a top-end edge rusher. Because go back to the offseason, folks, just before draft time, when we were in free agency, there were 3 positions that every Lions player, or not Lions player, every Lions fan, every podcaster, every analyst, Lions fan or not, was all saying that the Lions had to fix. They needed to find a wide receiver, they needed to add cornerbacks, and they needed an edge rusher opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. Well, let's take a look at what's gone on so far. Lions doubled down on cornerbacks in the draft. Okay, check that one off. The Lions added 2 wide receivers during cutdowns at the end of, the preseason. Okay, check that one off. But as far as edge rushers are concerned, the only thing that Brad Holmes did was add Davenport. And Davenport was a huge risk player. Again, that's one of those bargain shops where it's high risk, high reward. And again, the reason why the Lions gave him that 1-year, $6 million contract, it was because it was a prove-it contract. Can you prove that you can stay healthy? Well, let's take a look at it. The guy's only played in 2 games out of 3 that's already been played, and he's already seriously hurt. So yeah, I guess at that point, he's proven that he can't stay healthy. At the very least, that's what he's proven. But now it's going to come back on Brad Holmes that, once again, I already know it. Somebody's going to say that Brad Holmes' bargain shopping, his ability to want to always go cheap or get injured players is now coming back to bite the Lions in the ass. I know it's going to come out somewhere. And you know what? to a certain extent, I can't disagree with it. Brad Holmes could have easily gone after guys like Danielle Hunter or other guys that were in free agency, but he chose not to do so. Now, I can't talk about what happened in the past when we're already talking about what's happened now in the recent present. Think about it. The Lions also signed 4 guys to massive contracts this offseason. Goff, St. Brown, Penei Sewell, and Decker. The reason why I think that, the Lions didn't go out and spend crazy in free agency was because they already knew that they were going to sign all those guys. Now, I also know the Lions still have a crap ton of cap space. So maybe that's going to be another problem. Is like we had all this cap space after we signed all these players. We could have used that to sign somebody in free agency. But I also know this. You can't really, have a problem with the person that brought you to the dance. The way Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have set up this roster, they have done absolutely a marvelous job. And they have been right way more often than they've been wrong. I understand that this current situation does not look good. We're now in a position where our defense has a huge hole in it. We don't really have anybody that can fill in on Davenport's level. And there's not really anybody available that's readily available out on the free market. So it's like, okay, we're kind of in a little bit of a pickle here. So one of two things is going to have to happen. We ought to hope and pray like hell that either Uku or Houston steps up big time, or that Holmes is able to wave his magic wand and find something that we're not seeing here. Because otherwise, we've now got a major weakness on the defense, and if there's one thing I know about NFL offenses, quarterbacks and offensive coordinators, they will exploit weaknesses until they either, one, can't exploit it anymore, or they can't be stopped. That's how the NFL works. You try and find whatever weakness you can, and you continue to attack it. Well, now the Lions clearly have a weakness on a defense that over the last 2 games has been absolutely superb. So hopefully, whatever the Lions did in that Week 2 game where Davenport wasn't playing, that can be used for the rest of the year. I don't know what they did particularly well in that game as far as replacing Davenport, but hopefully whatever they did is something that can be used long-term and was not just a Band-Aid option. But I don't know. But when you have a situation like this, it's not good news. And so hopefully, either, like I said, players step up or Brad Holmes is able to find another option. That's all I can say. But having said that, obviously there's more injury news that's going to come down the wire, obviously, as we go further into the week. Again, we don't know, like I said, about McNeil. We don't know about Barnes. And obviously we still need to figure out if Anzalone's going to be able to come back this upcoming week or not. So there's a lot of injury news that the Lions are going to have coming up over the next couple of days. So definitely going to try my best to keep us all up in the loop on that. But having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things. Like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, please, I want to encourage y'all, please hit that subscription button and also hit the bell notification icon as well, so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also want to encourage y'all to please share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with anybody and anybody that you can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel grows and the greater the channel can spread. And with that being said, whether you've been a first-time viewer or you've been viewing me for a long time, I hope y'all enjoyed the content. Hope y'all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.